Part 1. The chamber hung in the silent dark of space, a great silver ring orbiting the swirling blue and gold clouds of Caelus Prime. Inside, under soft white lights and curved walls of polished alloy, delegates from over 300 worlds sat in tiered rows. Their faces were hidden behind masks, hoods, or shimmering fields of privacy. Customs varied, but the mood was the same. Tense. Final. At the center of the room, alone on a raised platform, stood Daniel Hart. He wore a plain gray suit, no insignia, no ornament. Just a human among aliens. His hands were clasped behind his back, his jaw set. He had not spoken in hours. He did not need to. The vote was coming. A low chime echoed through the chamber. The Grand Arbiter, a tall, slender being with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed faint amber, rose from the highest seat. Its voice, translated through a soft hum in every delegate's earpiece, filled the room without rising in volume. The Galactic Concord has reached consensus, it said, after review of historical records, behavioral analyses, and strategic risk assessments. The species known as Homo sapiens, originating from the third planet of the Sol system, is hereby declared unfit for continued participation in interstellar society. A pause. Not for drama. For gravity. Effective immediately, all human vessels are to withdraw from Concord-controlled space. All human colonies beyond Sol are to be dismantled or abandoned. Earth and its immediate system shall be placed under permanent quarantine. No trade, no communication, no travel. You are exiled. The word landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of murmurs spread through the chamber. Some relieved, some uneasy, most indifferent. To them, this was not cruelty. It was caution. Humanity had fought too many wars, built too fast, asked too many questions. They laughed too loudly, grieved too deeply, and changed their minds too often. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Daniel did not flinch. He had expected this, maybe even hoped for it. He stepped forward, activated his comm. His voice, calm and clear, carried not just to the chamber but through secure channels back to Earth. This is Ambassador Hart. The vote is final. Exile confirmed. Then quietly to himself, good. Back on Earth, the message arrived at 03:17 UTC. It lit up the private screen of President Lena Cruz in her quarters beneath Geneva. She was already awake, wrapped in a thin robe, staring at a hologram of Earth from orbit, blue, green, fragile. She read the transcript twice. Then she stood, walked to the wall panel, and pressed a single red symbol. Within minutes, every major government, every military command, every deep space facility received the same order. Initiate Horizon Protocol. Full compliance. No delays. No one panicked. No one protested. The plan had been ready for years, not as a response to war, but to this exact moment. Exile was not defeat. It was an opportunity. Across the planet, lights dimmed in cities not from power loss, but from deliberate conservation. Factories that once built luxury transports now poured molten metal into hull frames for long-range arcs. In orbit, the massive shipyards around Luna shifted focus. Civilian freighters were pulled from storage, their cargo holds stripped and rebuilt to carry families, seeds, data cores, and hope. Marcus Bell, a 28-year-old engineer working on the Titan dry docks, got the alert while eating a protein bar in the mess hall. He didn't speak. He just stood, tossed the wrapper, and jogged to Bay 7. There, the Odyssey, a deep-range exploration vessel once meant for scientific survey, was being retrofitted with Concord-grade jump drives salvaged from decommissioned defense ships. Marcus had helped design the interface. Now he would help fly it. On Mars, in the red dust of New Ares colony, Nora Fields stared at her console. Her fingers flew across the screen, recalculating jump vectors, gravitational slingshots, dark matter corridors. She wasn't just plotting escape routes. She was mapping a future, beyond known space, beyond the Concord's reach, into the Veil Nebula, a region marked unstable and unmapped in every galactic chart. Most called it a graveyard. Nora called it a door. Back on Earth, President Cruz addressed the world, not with a speech but with a single broadcast. Her face appeared on every public screen, every personal device. No music, no flags, just her, tired but steady. They voted to push us out, she said. So we'll go. Not as beggars, not as prisoners, but as people who choose their own path. Pack what matters. Leave the rest. We are not losing our home. We are taking it with us in our minds, our hearts, our hands. Then the broadcast ended. No applause. No slogans. Just quiet action. Families gathered photos, books, soil from their gardens. Schools uploaded their entire curriculums into hardened data crystals. Artists recorded songs, poems, dances, everything that made Earth human. Not just facts. Feelings. The conquered assumed humanity would resist. They expected riots, pleas, last-minute negotiations. They sent a small fleet to the edge of Sol space, ready to enforce the exile with force if needed. But when their scouts arrived at the outer rim of the system, they found nothing. No warships, no angry transmissions, just silence. Earth's orbital platforms were dark. The shipyards around Jupiter were empty. Even the old mining stations near the asteroid belt had been stripped clean. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. In truth, they hadn't vanished. They had left. While the galaxy slept, Earth's final fleet, over 200 vessels from massive arcs to tiny scout ships, had jumped into the unknown. Not in fear, not in shame, but with purpose. Daniel Hart was already aboard the lead ship, the Odyssey, watching the stars blur as the jump drive hummed to life. He looked back once at the pale blue dot growing smaller behind them, and smiled. They hadn't waited to be pushed. They hadn't waited to be asked. They'd simply decided it was time to go, and so they did. Part 2. The stars outside the viewport were not the same ones humans had known for centuries. These were stranger, colder, wrapped in veils of violet and silver dust. The fleet had crossed the edge of known space weeks ago, and now drifted in the silent stretch beyond the Veil Nebula, a place the Galactic Concord had marked as impassable, unstable, and best avoided. But humanity had never been good at avoiding things. New Haven was not a city yet. It was a dream taking shape on the surface of Viridia 9, a rocky moon orbiting a quiet red dwarf. The ground was iron-rich, the air thin but breathable with help, and the twin suns painted long shadows that stretched like fingers across the landing zones. Marcus Bell stood ankle-deep in rust-colored dust, his boots crunching softly as he checked the seals on the atmospheric processor. His hands moved quickly, guided by months of practice and the quiet hum of the machine itself. It was working. Better than expected. Around him, others worked in silence. No shouting, no panic, just steady motion. Families unloaded crates from dropships, stacking them in neat rows near the first dome. Children, wrapped in thermal suits too big for them, helped carry data slates or coils of cable. Everyone had a job. Everyone mattered. Nora Field stood atop a low ridge, her eyes fixed on the sky. She wasn't looking at the stars. She was watching the fleet. Dozens of ships still hovered in orbit, their lights blinking like fireflies against the dark. Each one held people, supplies, pieces of Earth. Some would stay in orbit as defense posts. Others would be stripped for parts. A few, the fastest, the most advanced, would scout farther out, searching for more safe places. She tapped her wristcom. Marcus, the third processor is online. Oxygen levels stabilizing in Sector B. Copy that, came his voice, slightly muffled by his helmet. I'll run a pressure test in 10. Nora turned and walked back toward the main habitat dome. It was made of layered polymer and recycled ship hulls, inflated like a giant balloon and anchored deep into the rock. Inside it was warm, lit by soft white panels and filled with the low murmur of voices. People were setting up sleeping bunks, connecting water lines, calibrating food synthesizers. In one corner, an old man played a harmonica, just a simple tune, but it filled the space with something human. President Lena Cruz sat at a folding table near the center, reviewing supply reports on a cracked tablet. Her hair was tied back, her uniform patched at the elbow. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. She nodded as Nora approached. How's the sky? Lena asked. Quiet, Nora said. No signals, no scans. If the Concord is looking, they haven't found us yet. Good. Let's keep it that way. They both knew it wouldn't last forever. The Concord had eyes everywhere. But for now they had time. Time to build, time to breathe. Daniel Hart arrived later that day, stepping off a shuttle with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He no longer wore a diplomat's suit. Now he wore a gray jumpsuit with a tool belt and a small patch on the chest that read, New Haven, Logistics. He had traded speeches for soldering irons, treaties for tethers. He found Marcus near the eastern ridge, where they were laying power conduits. "You look like you haven't slept," Daniel said. "Haven't," Marcus replied, wiping grease from his brow. "We're trying to get the greenhouse dome sealed before the next solar flare." Daniel knelt and picked up a connector. "Show me how it works." And so he learned. Like everyone else, there were no titles here, no ranks that mattered more than the work at hand. A former ambassador dug trenches. A former president carried water tanks. A young engineer taught adults how to recalibrate fusion cells. Days turned into weeks. The domes multiplied. Solar collectors spread across the plains like silver flowers. Water was drawn from underground ice and purified. Crops, wheat, potatoes, algae began to grow under artificial suns. New Haven was alive, but something else was happening too. It started with the tremors, small at first, barely noticeable, just a faint vibration in the ground every few nights. Most dismissed it as seismic activity. Viridia 9 was geologically young after all, but Nora wasn't convinced. She set up sensors across the moon's surface, linked to a central array in the science dome. Night after night she watched the readings. The tremors weren't random. They followed a pattern, a rhythm, almost like a pulse. One evening she brought her findings to Lena and Daniel. "It's not natural," she said, pointing to a waveform on the screen. "Look at the intervals. They match no known tectonic behavior. And the energy signature? It's artificial, or at least structured. Structured how?" Daniel asked. "Like a signal, or a machine." They decided to investigate. A small team, Nora, Marcus, 2 geologists, and a security officer named Kyle, packed gear and headed to the source, a deep canyon on the far side of the moon, hidden beneath layers of magnetic rock that blocked most scans. The journey took 2 days by rover. The canyon walls rose like black teeth against the red sky. At the bottom, half buried in dust, was a smooth metallic surface, perfectly flat, seamless, and cold to the touch. Marcus ran a scanner over it. "This isn't human. And it's not conquered." Nora knelt, placing her palm flat against the metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft blue light spread from her hand outward, tracing lines across the surface like veins waking up. The ground trembled again, but this time, it felt different. Not threatening, curious. Back at New Haven, the news spread fast. People gathered around the science dome, watching the live feed from the canyon. No one spoke. They just watched as the light grew brighter, forming symbols none of them recognized but somehow felt familiar. Lena stood at the back of the crowd, arms crossed. She didn't understand what they'd found, but she knew one thing. This changed everything. Humanity had come here to hide, but the moon had been waiting for them. And now, it was answering. Part 3. The blue light from the canyon did not fade. It grew stronger, spreading across the metal surface like water finding its level. Nora kept her hand on the structure, her breath shallow, her mind racing. She felt no heat, no vibration, just a low hum, steady and calm, as if the metal itself was breathing. Around her, the team stood frozen, eyes wide, tools forgotten in their hands. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shifted. Not a quake, a lift. The entire section of canyon floor rose slowly, silently, revealing a vast opening below. Stairs, smooth, curved, and glowing faintly, led downward into darkness. Marcus stepped forward. "We should go down." "No," said Kyle, the security officer, his hand resting on his sidearm. "We don't know what's down there." Nora turned to him. It responded to touch, to presence, not to weapons, not to force. "I think it wants us to come." After a long silence, Kyle nodded. "Fine, but we go slow." And we stay together. They descended. The air grew cooler, cleaner. The walls pulsed with soft light, adjusting as they moved as if the place knew where they were. At the bottom, they found a chamber, wide, high, and filled with towering pillars that hummed with energy. In the center stood a circular platform, empty except for a single indentation in the shape of a human hand. Nora didn't hesitate. She placed her palm into it. The chamber lit up. Light poured from the pillars, swirling in patterns that looked like stars, then rivers, then faces, human faces. Not specific ones, just expressions, joy, grief, wonder, curiosity. The emotions flickered like memories, not stored in data, but in feeling. A voice spoke, not in words, but in understanding. It filled their minds without sound. You feel deeply. You build quickly. You remember what others forget? Marcus stumbled back. Did you hear that? I didn't hear it, Nora whispered. I felt it. They called it the echo array. Not because it repeated sound, but because it echoed emotion, thought, creativity, everything that made humans human. Over the next weeks, more teams came. Scientists, artists, children, elders. Each one who touched the array experienced something different. A musician heard harmonies no instrument could play. A child saw colors that didn't exist. An old farmer felt the roots of trees growing across galaxies. New Haven changed. The domes grew stronger, not from better materials, but because builders began to imagine them whole, and the array responded, guiding their hands. Crops grew faster, healthier, as if the soil itself understood what the plants needed. Even the air tasted cleaner, richer. Lena watched it all from the command dome, her tablet filled with reports she could barely explain. Ship repairs that finished in hours instead of days, power cells that recharged by humming at certain frequencies, navigation systems that predicted solar storms before they formed. None of it followed known physics. It followed intuition. One evening, Daniel found her staring at a live feed from the array chamber. A young girl was standing on the platform, eyes closed, tears on her cheeks. Around her, the light swirled in slow spirals. What is it doing to us? Lena asked quietly. Not to us, Daniel said. With us, it's not controlling us. It's listening. Back on Earth, humanity had been told they were too emotional, too chaotic, too messy for the galaxy. But here that messiness was a key. The array didn't want logic alone. It wanted heart. News of the changes didn't stay hidden for long. Deep in conquered space, sensors picked up strange energy spikes near the Veil Nebula, pulses that matched no known technology. At first, they assumed it was a natural phenomenon. Then a scout ship sent to investigate vanished without a distress call. When a second ship returned with scrambled logs and crew members speaking in, riddles about singing rocks and thinking light, the conquered High Council convened an emergency session. They had exiled humanity to keep the galaxy safe. Now, something worse was happening. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were changing. And whatever they had found out, there was changing with them. Fear spread through the conquered halls. Not the calm fear of risk assessment, but the raw fear of the unknown. Whispers began. Maybe the humans hadn't been exiled. Maybe they had been chosen. Meanwhile, on Viridia 9, Marcus and Nora worked together to connect the array to the Odyssey. Not to weaponize it, they had no interest in war, but to understand its reach. When they linked the ship's core to the array, the vessel's systems came alive in ways no engineer could explain. The jump drive no longer needed coordinates. It needed intent. Where do you want to go? Nora asked Marcus one night, standing on the ship's bridge. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere they'll never think to look, she smiled. Then think it hard. He closed his eyes. Imagined a quiet system, far beyond the edge of old maps with a blue-green world and gentle winds. The ship hummed, the stars outside blurred, and in less than a breath they were there. No calculations. No fuel burn, just desire, made real. When they returned to New Haven, they brought back soil samples, water, and hope. More ships would follow. More worlds would be found, not by conquest. By care, Lena called a meeting of all colony leaders. No speeches, just a simple plan. We don't hide anymore, she said. We grow, we learn. We share what we find, with each other and with anyone willing to listen. Some worried the conquered would come. They might, Lena admitted. But we won't meet them with guns. We'll meet them with open hands. If they want to understand, they can. If they want to fight, they'll find we're not the same species they exiled. Days passed. The array pulsed stronger. New Haven thrived. Children played under twin suns, their laughter echoing through domes that shimmered with living light. And far away, in the cold halls of the conquered, a single scout ship turned its sensors toward the Veil Nebula one last time. It sent back one final message before its signal vanished. They are not alone. And they are not afraid. Part 4. The Concord fleet arrived without warning. 3 warships, sleek and sharp-edged, dropped out of jump space at the edge of Viridia 9's orbit. Their hulls were black, their weapons silent but ready. They did not broadcast a message. They simply waited, watching. Down on the surface, alarms did not blare. Sirens did not wail. New Haven had no military alert system, because it had no military. Instead, a soft chime sounded in every dome and a single line of text appeared on every screen. Visitors in orbit. Proceed with calm. Lena Cruz stood outside the main habitat, her hands in her pockets, her eyes on the sky. She wore no uniform, just a plain brown jacket and boots caked with red dust. Beside her, Daniel Hart adjusted the collar of his jumpsuit. "They're early," he said. "Or late," Lena replied. "Depends on what they want." Nora and Marcus were already at the array chamber. They had felt the shift the moment the ships appeared, not through sensors, but through the hum in the walls, the flicker in the light. The array knew they were there, and it was not afraid. "We should go up," Nora said. "Not yet," Marcus answered. "Let them wonder why we're not running." Above, in the lead Concord vessel, High Emissary Vrel stood on the command deck, his long fingers tapping restlessly on the railing. He had been chosen for this mission because he was calm, logical, and trusted. But now, looking down at the moon below, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt scans showed no weapons, no shield generators, no hidden fleets, just domes, gardens, and a strange energy signature centered in a canyon. The humans were just living. "Send the standard hail," he ordered. A voice echoed across all public channels on Viridia 9, translated into clean, flat English. "This is the Concord enforcement vessel, Kethra. You are in violation of Exile Decree 7 Alpha. Power down all systems. Prepare for inspection." Silence followed. Then a new voice answered, not from a comm array, but carried on a gentle wave of sound that seemed to come from the moon itself. It was Lena's voice, but softer, layered with something else. "We are not hiding. You're welcome to land. But leave your weapons behind," Vrel frowned. "They're inviting us?" His second-in-command, a young officer named Jira, hesitated. "Sir, our scans show their energy field is interacting with our ship. Not attacking, but listening." Vrel stared at the planet below. He had read the reports. The vanished scouts, the impossible jumps, the rumors of humans healing broken metal with song. He had dismissed them as fear-born myths. Now he wasn't so sure. "Prepare a shuttle," he said. "I'll go down. Alone." Minutes later, his shuttle touched down near the main dome. The ramp lowered. Vrel stepped out, his hands empty, his mask removed. He expected guards. He expected tension. Instead, he saw children playing a game with glowing stones. A woman tending plants that shimmered like liquid glass, and Lena Cruz walking toward him, smiling slightly. "You came," she said. "You invited me," he replied. His voice was rough, unused to speaking without filters. She led him not to a meeting room, but to the canyon. To the array. "You exiled us because we felt too much," she said as they walked. "But out here, feeling is how we survive. How we build, how we understand." At the chamber entrance, she stopped. "Go ahead. Touch it," Vrel hesitated. His species did not believe in emotion as a tool. Logic ruled. Order ruled. But something in Lena's eyes made him step forward. He placed his three-fingered hand on the platform. Light bloomed, images flooded his mind. Not human memories, but echoes of his own past. His first flight. The death of his mentor. The quiet joy of solving a complex equation. The array did not show him human pain. It showed him his own, and it honored it. He fell to his knees, tears tracing lines down his gray cheeks. When he stood again, his voice was different. "What is this place?" "It's a library," Lena said. "But it doesn't store facts. It stores meaning." Back on his ship, Vrel reported nothing of weapons or rebellion. He spoke only of harmony, of resonance, of a species that had not broken under exile but had grown into something new. His superiors did not believe him, but others did. Within days, whispers spread through the Concord. A botanist on the agricultural world of Silent 4 claimed her crops grew faster after she played music near them. A pilot on the edge of the Helix Rim reported his ship responded better when he thought kindly of it. A historian found ancient texts describing the Singers, a mythic race who spoke to stars and shaped worlds with feeling. Were the humans the Singers returned? No one knew, but doubt had taken root. Then came the defections. First, a small science vessel drifted toward Viridia 9 and refused to return. Then a freighter carrying medical supplies landed quietly and asked to stay. Its crew, 2 engineers, a doctor, and a linguist, said they were tired of silence. They wanted to feel again. Lena welcomed them, gave them domes, taught them how to listen to the array. The Conquered called it betrayal. But on Viridian 9, it was just another kind of homecoming. Nora and Marcus worked with the newcomers, showing them how to link their thoughts to the ship systems, how to grow food with intention, how to heal with sound. The array responded to all of them, not because they were human, but because they were open. One night, as the twin suns set, Daniel stood with Vrel on the ridge overlooking New Haven. The domes glowed softly. Music drifted on the wind, a flute, a drum, a voice singing in a language no one had heard before but everyone understood. "You could have hidden this," Vrel said. "You could have used it as a weapon." "We did use it," Daniel replied. "As a bridge." Vrel looked at the stars. For the first time in his life, they did not seem cold. Far away in the heart of conquered space, the High Council argued in hushed, angry tones. Some demanded immediate blockade. Others pleaded for study, for contact, for change. The old order was cracking, and on Viridia 9, humanity did not celebrate. They simply kept building, kept listening, kept sharing because they had learned the truth. Exile had not ended their story. It had begun a new one, and this time, they were not alone. Part 5. The Concord fleet returned, but not as enforcers. This time their ships carried no weapons on their hulls. Their comms carried no orders. They came in silence, drifting into orbit like guests unsure of their welcome. At their head flew the Kethra, now marked with a single silver symbol on its bow, a circle with a ripple through it, the sign of the Echo Array. Down on Viridia 9, people paused their work and looked up. No alarms sounded. No one ran. They simply watched as shuttles descended, not in formation but one by one, as if each pilot had chosen to come on their own. Lena Cruz stood at the edge of the landing field, her hands at her sides. Beside her were Daniel, Nora, Marcus, and Vrel, the former emissary who now wore a simple tunic woven from New Haven's light reactive fibers. He had not gone back. He had stayed. And in staying, he had become something new. The first shuttle touched down. The ramp lowered. Out stepped not soldiers but scholars, healers, artists, and young ones with curious eyes. They carried no demands, only questions. One of them, a tall woman with silver markings on her temples, walked straight to Lena. She bowed slightly, then spoke in careful, practiced English. "We wish to learn," Lena nodded. "Then you're already on the right path." There was no grand ceremony, no treaty signing under bright lights. Instead, the newcomers were shown the domes, the gardens, the quiet hum of daily life. They were taken to the canyon, to the array chamber, and invited to place their hands on the platform. Some wept, some laughed, some stood in stunned silence for hours. The array did not care about species. It cared about openness. And these visitors had come with open minds. Over the next weeks, more ships arrived. Not just from the Conquered, but from fringe worlds, forgotten colonies, and quiet systems that had watched humanity's exile with unease. They had heard the stories of ships that flew on thought, of wounds healed by song, of a moon that remembered every feeling placed upon it. They came not to conquer, but to belong. New Haven grew, not into a city of steel and glass, but into a living network of domes, bridges, and shared spaces that shifted with the needs of those who lived there. Trees, grown from earth seeds but shaped by Viridian soil and array resonance, bore fruit that tasted different to every person who ate it. Music filled the air at all hours, not as noise but as conversation. Marcus and Nora worked with engineers from a dozen worlds, teaching them how to link machines to emotion, how to let intuition guide design. A ship built by human hands and silent for botanists could now grow its own hull patches like bark. A scanner from the helix rim, once cold and precise, now showed not just data, but the emotional state of the person it scanned. Daniel spent his days walking among the newcomers, listening more than speaking. He helped a young linguist from Kalis Prime translate the array's pulses into poetry. He sat with elders from a water-world colony as they shared stories of loss and hope. He no longer thought of himself as a diplomat. He was just a person, among people. President Lena Cruz still carried the weight of leadership, but it was lighter now. She no longer made decisions alone. Every evening, a circle formed in the central plaza. Humans, conquered members, strangers from distant stars. And they spoke. Not to command, but to understand. The old conquered council still existed far away in their silver ring around Kalis Prime. But their power was fading. More and more member worlds chose to send their own representatives to Viridia 9, instead of attending votes they no longer believed in. The galaxy was changing not through war but through quiet choice. One morning a small ship arrived alone. It bore no markings. Its pilot was an old man with tired eyes and a faded Concord uniform. He walked straight to Lena. "I was on the vote," he said. "I raised my hand to exile you." She waited. "I came to say I was wrong," he continued. "Not because you proved us weak, but because you showed us what we lost when we stopped feeling." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then stay, and feel again." He did. Months passed. The network of aligned worlds grew. They called themselves the Resonance, not a government, not an alliance, but a shared way of being. Ships traveled between systems not with coordinates, but with purpose. If a world needed help, someone would go. Not because they were ordered, but because they cared. Earth was never forgotten. Data crystals held its oceans, its mountains, its songs. Children learned about Paris, Nairobi, Tokyo, not as places to return to, but as roots to honor. Humanity had not lost its home. It had carried it in their hearts, and now planted it among the stars. One evening, as the twin suns set, Lena stood on the ridge with Daniel and Vrel. Below them, New Haven glowed, not with electric light, but with the soft pulse of the array, alive and breathing with everyone who lived there. "They exiled us to keep the galaxy safe," Lena said. "And instead," Daniel replied, "we made it whole." Vrel looked up at the stars. "You never asked to belong?" "No," Lena said. "We just showed what belonging could be." Far away in the silent dark between systems, a new ship prepared to jump. Its pilot was a young girl from Viridia 9, her hands resting lightly on the controls. She closed her eyes, thought of a quiet world with blue skies and gentle rain, and whispered, "Take me there." The stars blurred, and she was gone, not running, not hiding, just going, because the galaxy was no longer a place to be controlled. It was a place to be felt, and humanity, once exiled for feeling too much, had finally taught it how.